Radio for Skaro.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Radio Free Skaro, episode number 743. I am Stephen in Edmonton.
Warren in Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
We're halfway through May. We're also halfway through our season 10 commentary series. We wrapped up Frontier in Space last week. We begin our Planet of the Daleks commentary this week with the first two episodes with guest Toby Hadoke. Toby Hadoke, who hasn't been on the show for quite some time, drops by for the commentary of that. But someone else who hasn't been on the show for a very long time, possibly since we haven't done the exact math on this, but he came on once to defend the Rings of Akaten, and thus I assume probably just immediately went on to the blacklist and thus was never invited back. But these are indeed unusual times, so it's my great pleasure to welcome back onto the show Erik Stadnik. Hello, Erik.
Hello, Stephen. 743?
Yeah, we're up to 740. That's almost 750.
God,
I know.
Oh, my word. Yeah, I think I was on episode 27. I think that was the last time I was on.
27. We didn't know people in episode 27.
I wasn't even on there.
Yeah, I remember. I listened in the early days.
It was you listen. You're one of those people goes on Twitter, Radio Free Skaro, like 2006 to 2009. That's your glory period, and you refuse to acknowledge anything that comes after it. I understand you people.
Everything after that's not canon.
It's not canon. Doesn't matter. Exactly. How you doing, Erik?
I'm doing well. It's good to be back.
It's great to have you back. You, of course, are now in the Czech Republic, or Czech. Is it officially Czechia? I know Sporkle.com calls it Czechia. And I just,
the highest authority in all things.
What the hell is
Sporkle.com? calls it
Czech
Czech Republic still.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, let's ask the native. How about?
Well, not a native, but the Czech Republic is the formal name of the country. But for casual, everyday use, essentially, they have approved the name Czechia. But even some people who live here don't like it and don't use it.
Approving of casual everyday use seems to be kind of backwards.
Well, I think it's, you can think about the PRK, the People's Republic of China, or, these countries that have big, long names.
United States of America.
Yeah, and so everyone just calls it America or the U.S. Czechia is sort of the official version of here's what you can call it if you don't want to go full on. But people who live here just call it Czech. Like, I've lived in Czech for 10 years. Like, that works.
That's true. What I'd like to know then, if you're all calling it Czech, and I assume everyone who is in Slovakia calls it Slovakia, where is the O? Where is the O in Czechoslovakia? Then what happened to that is what I'd like to know. Did that
when they broke up, it makes you say, oh.
Is that like in Bohemia? Is it the O is in Bohemia? I understand now. That's how we
took it.
I'm not even going to say anything to any of that because it was such a pile of nonsense.
743 episodes. That's how we do it.
Yeah, but no, it was the Czech lands and the Slovak lands, and just you had to put something in there because Czech Slovak doesn't roll off the tongue. So
it really doesn't. Czechia does though. It does have a nice little but I don't know. It's the hockey jerseys still say Czech Republic for what it's worth.
And everything like that always will. I don't even know how to spell Czechia in the Czech version of the Latin alphabet. Like, because we have different diacritics and things. I've seen it in English. I have no idea how it's actually spelled using Czech letters.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Whereas I know how to spell Czech Republic. So
yeah. So do I. I mean, in English, that's all. But
you should feel very proud of yourself, Stephen.
Bravo, Stephen. I can't even do that. So
yeah. So we've been bringing on people of various backgrounds and locations and stuff to get the sort of the perspective on the global pandemic. And Europe, of course, was sort of an early touch point after China. you guys were sort of in lockdown for a lot earlier than we were, and thus are also emerging. I believe like a couple weeks ago, the Czech Republic said that, hey, we're like reopening television and film production with some limits. So what has your experience been of the past few weeks, and where are you at now?
So we are essentially almost completely out of lockdown at this point. There are still a few kinds of businesses that can't operate fully. For example, restaurants can't seat anyone inside. Coffee shops are the same, but almost anyone now has either takeaway or they have outdoor seating, and that's just what everyone's doing. And so there are now 5 cafes within literally a 3-second walk of my flat that I could go to and sit outside and have a coffee. Masks are still required, but you can take them down when you're eating or drinking or smoking, because Czechs love to smoke. But even a lot of these other things start lifting on the 25th of May, which is only 9 days away. They're actually going to start allowing large gatherings again. I think first 300, and then a week after that or so, a few weeks, 500, and then up to 1,000.
Oh, with social distancing as well, like in the midst of that?
To some extent, I think what they've decided, and it's really hard to tell, because it's a coalition government that's leading things. The Prime Minister, Mr. Babiš, who is one of the richest men in the country.
Oh, good.
Has been very forceful.
Unusual, that.
It is kind of unusual here, and he's almost certainly corrupt. But he's under investigation by the EU, and it's always possible that an indictment will come down from someone somewhere. But he was very forceful and out in front of this, to the point where we essentially locked down before it had become a problem, which is rare among, I think, European countries, certainly. And so we're now at the point where kind of within the borders, it's manageable and contained. And so the question is, how do you make sure that new infections don't come in from outside the country's borders? And so but the borders are even going to start reopening. I think the border with Austria actually at least reopens like tomorrow.
Oh.
And the other borders, Slovakia, Germany, Poland, will probably reopen in the coming weeks. Czechs love traveling to Croatia for holiday. That will probably be allowed this summer. So it seems as if by late May, mid-June, almost everything will be back to normal, including the use of masks, which I think were only going to be required inside things like mass trains that are inside stores. So that's where we are, but only because they sort of stopped everything so early that we essentially never really had a problem. We locked down on March 10th.
Goodness.
It was the beginning of the lockdown. The full state of emergency went into effect on the 12th, and by the 14th, essentially everything that wasn't essential was closed.
Oh, wow. That's rapid.
It was a busy few days. And at that point, we still had 0 deaths and like 100 cases. They just said, nope, we're not doing this. Not going to have it.
As a numbers person, I like referring often to like the numbers published by Johns Hopkins and all those other places, and just looking at Czechia. I mean, the population of Czechia versus Canada, about a third of the people over there, and around it, like it's a small fraction of the number of cases and fatalities and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, like what was done there obviously really, really helped.
Yeah, and it felt, I think, I'm sure some people felt, that it was draconian, haha.
I get it.
And that it was overly, that it wasn't a big deal. There were plenty of, just like there were in America and Canada, there were people saying, oh, it's just the flu, all that nonsense.
Yeah.
But we're also...
There's a big protest in Hyde Park in London today.
Oh, yeah.
Stupid people.
Yeah, there's always people. There's always people.
And there always will be people. Like, you sort of can't, quarantine won't squash idiocy.
No. Vaccines won't squash it either. Once, if and when there's a vaccine, wait until the next battle, everyone, when there's going to be a whole chunk of people who says, I'm not taking your vaccine. So, like,
don't. Bye.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. But I've been comparing it when I talk to people to, especially because I mainly talk to Americans, think of a state like Pennsylvania or North Carolina, which is about the same size or small or even larger geographically than the Czech Republic, about the same population distribution, like one or two major cities, a lot of rural people. And we have a fraction of the cases of either of those states. And it's all because we went into lockdown so fast. Yeah. There is no, as far as they can tell, they've done studies, as far as they can tell, there is no immunity like in the population at all.
No.
Like something like 1% of Czechs were exposed to the virus before it got shut down.
Yeah, Canadians too, I think too. Is there's like a 1% immunity thing is what they factor in. So this is the weird bit. You know, like we're recording this on Saturday. I'm not a soccer fan, but the German Bundesliga started up today, and I was curious, and I like poked my head in. Watched a few minutes of the game, and like, you know, no fans obviously, and like, you know, the spares sitting on the sidelines are all like evenly spread out with like face masks on, yet the players aren't, which I found kind of odd. Italy is opening up international travel again on June the 3rd. I saw. I think Slovenia is. I think
Slovenia essentially declared mission accomplished.
Yeah, they threw up the banner more or less and said, "Yep, we're good to go."
Well, there's absolutely no precedent for that being a bad idea.
No. So I mean, you know, here in Alberta, I mean, the caseload in Edmonton is I think there's like literally 61 active cases in the entire city. Which is, you know, we're a city of 1 million people, and it's very, very low. But even that, like even now, this weekend, which is a long weekend in Canada, we are like sort of gradually kind of opening up. But like, I still don't really have a reason to go outside and do much and go to stores and things. So I'm just gonna wait. I'm just gonna wait a little bit. I don't know. How are you feeling, Eric? Do you feel confident, I suppose, in the world that you're living right now? That you said, yeah, sure, let's open up, let's just do all the things that I used to do. Where's your mindset at right now?
I mean, I'm American, so I'm pretty much terrified of everything all the time.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure. I honestly wasn't sure where that was going to go. Yeah, I thought like I'm gonna drive down Prague with my monster truck and my foam hat and air horn, and let's just go.
Truck nuts. Don't forget the truck nuts.
Yeah.
And the shirt made of the flag.
Yeah.
I'll rephrase it. I'm a Democrat.
There we go.
Much better.
There we go.
Yeah. So I'm still keeping to home when I don't need to go out and do things, and trying to minimize my trips and being very cautious about hand washing and all that good stuff. The rest of the population, I would say, is they're ready to be outside. Czechs are very outdoorsy people. They're very sort of let's get out in the nature kind. And they, as soon as the weather started turning nice, you could see there was a clear struggle, you know, about how much time you should be spending outside and congregating in groups and things versus how much you should be spending at home. And now that it's really turned and we're having a quite lovely spring in many ways, I think the reason the government is relenting and sort of keeps accelerating the deadlines for reopening is it hasn't gotten noticeably worse, and they know they would have a losing battle on their hands if they tried.
This sounds suspiciously like Vancouver. We've got more or less the same situation happening here. Maybe a little more cautious, but not much.
Yeah. And so I think everyone is sort of, I think the current working assumption among the government and most people I talk to who sort of have to think about this for their profession somehow is we're probably going to be fine with either minimal cases or very slow increase through the next few months. And then when kids go back to school and everything starts happening in September, October, it might get bad again if there isn't a lot of precautions put in place. And no one as of yet knows what that will look like. Mm-hmm.
It'll be very interesting to see where we are. We can't stay hidden forever, I guess.
Says you.
It says me. It's to tie this back into Doctor Who, as we always try to do. I mean, the EastEnders, which of course has been off production like every other TV and film production pretty much in the world, announced this past week that they will resume filming at the end of June with strict social distancing measures will be in place. So
Top Gear as well said they're going back to production.
Top Gear as well. Doctor Who is slated to get back to it in September. who knows where we'll be? Will we be better off then, or will like the upswing? Will the inevitable perhaps upswing have happened by then?
Every monster will be like the Stig, basically just covered in something.
It'll be blue screen. Doctor Who will be Underworld, essentially like that. It'll just be nonstop blue screen with no one standing next to each other whatsoever. It was actually, the Hollywood Reporter had a couple of round table discussions on their YouTube channel, the second of which Sagan Akinola was a part, and he was talking about how like it would be impossible right now to record an orchestra for music because at the sound of the orchestra is the thing that it makes the sound, not just the individual instruments. So that might affect what music gets put in and stuff. Like there's a whole host of different perspectives from like cinematographers and producers and everything else, but that's one that I hadn't really thought of before. So depending on where the world is at when it comes time to score the damn series, it might just go right back to a radiophonic workshop type of soundtrack for Doctor Who Series 13. Well, who knows? Doctor
Who Series 1, the revamp had just like Murray Gold doing the synth and such. Akinol is no stranger to that, so it could be done.
Yeah, it could be done, but there's lots of different things to consider.
Yeah, I think the biggest threat would actually be to like hair and makeup.
Oh, definitely. Totally.
There's no way to do that distanced.
Yeah, no, you gotta have all people, PPP on, I guess,
or people getting like monster costumes and
like makeup broadly understood. Applications and prosthetics and things like there's a ton of very personal, intimate contact that happens there that if someone has a sniffle or whatever.
By the way, working with my workshop, writing about the construction industry, I just throw PPE around like everybody knows what it means. And now everybody does, and it's almost exactly like being a Doctor Who fan and going, why is everybody like this show now?
Yeah.
Why do you know these terms I'm bandying around like I know something?
Well, on the positive side, I mean, this likely means that there will be no kissing scenes because that would be like breaking the social comparison. So, thankfully,
wow,
finally, 1 year of no hanky panky in the TARDIS.
But you could do forlorn looks from a long way away.
But what about the lack of hanky panky on EastEnders? Or Top Gear.
That's a bigger problem.
Or Top Gear. What will the Slash Writers do for Top Gear?
Well, they got a lot more.
I laugh, but there probably are Slash Writers for Top Gear.
Of course there are.
Come on now.
Yeah. I don't know that, and I'm not willing to find out.
Speaking of Doctor Who Series 12, the BBC Writers' Room website, which has occasionally thrown up various different scripts from years gone by, has posted the entirety of Series 12. All 10 scripts are on there for download for you to use to perhaps to restage these episodes in your own living room or Zoom session.
Oh, I don't know. Dollies, perhaps.
You could do it, Warren. You could
do Orphan 55 in dolly form.
Oh,
Betty!
Is that a gauntlet I see being thrown?
Betty! Or perhaps you could build the truck, which wasn't actually built for Orphan 55, as they.
That's where your Lego skills come in, my friend.
That's right. Well, yeah, I think it basically just looked like Elon Musk's SUV thing. But anyway, so links in the show notes if you want to download all those. I downloaded them all because why not? Scripts are fun.
Yeah.
And they're kind of neat. I think as we record this, or as this goes out rather, I think the Fires of Pompeii tweet along with James Brand, Tracy Childs, and Francesca Fowler will be happening, as put on by Emily Cook. Have you been keeping up on these tweet alongs, Eric, at all on Twitter, watching these old episodes?
Some. I have yet to actually participate fully. Because I'm very persnickety about what I watch and when I watch it.
Yeah, I know.
Which is sort of just a jerky thing to do. But I love following along on Twitter, and I love how much interest and love it's sort of just sort of rekindling for a lot of these sort of stories that now feel to us like ancient history almost.
Yeah.
I saw somebody say like, what other fandom is doing this, and I'm like, I don't want to answer that because maybe they are. Like maybe Star Trek people are doing Star Trek stuff.
I'm not aware of any Star Trek stuff, but there's the one or two Life on Mars ones.
True.
But
I think there's been some James Bond ones. I think Pierce Brosnan did a GoldenEye one or something. Yeah.
I have a very heavy Broadway contingent on my Twitter, and there's a lot of Broadway content happening on Twitter right now, but that could just because I have a heavy Broadway contingent, of which I have no interest whatsoever.
There is a huge amount of Broadway stuff happening.
Yeah.
And that's partly, though, because, Broadway's shut down.
Because it can't,
These actors and performers and whatnot, they need to be doing something to be making money for themselves and for the charities they're supporting. So
I've been enjoying the Avenue Q stuff, the Avenue Quarantine content that's been put on Twitter, or YouTube rather. There's not much of it, but there's some. And then Eric, all the Andrew Lloyd Webber stuff is getting. There's like the new thing every Friday. Cats was yesterday. Have you been following all that? I don't know how much of a Lloyd Webber fan you are, though.
Not at all.
Good man.
Not because he's bad. He's just not to my. I like Evita, but the Cats was quite popular with some friends of ours because he all but said the movie was terrible. Which is kind of what everyone wants him to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he kept talking about how nice it is to hear the songs uninterrupted by nonsense and things like that.
Yeah. Wow.
I almost want to see this terrible film, even though I couldn't care less about Cats, just because it's apparently such a car crash.
I saw 20 seconds of a clip once on Twitter, and I'm thinking, nope.
Fair.
It's got Idris Elba in it. How bad could it be?
It's
got Ian McKellen in it, and and
Judi
despite
Dench.
that,
Judi Dench.
Basically, this is Caligula with cats, in terms of an amazing cast for no good reason.
Kind of is.
Not quite as disgusting as Caligula.
Yeah. Bob Guccione didn't get his hands into it, thankfully.
Well, he's a skeleton now, so yeah.
Steering this back on from, I don't know how you steer it back on course after Caligula with cats, but
I'm supposed to take it to dark places. Not
we
Yeah,
had of course we had Peter Harness on last week to talk about his Zygon. That was great, actually. I watched along with that, and Peter was posting screen caps of like early scripts and stuff, including he told me once about how he tried to like make Dimensions in Time canon, and they actually tweeted the page of script that would have actually happened with. It was pretty cool, actually.
I missed that one. I saw a bunch of his other crazy ideas that didn't get used. But
Yeah,
I missed the Dimensions in Time one.
There's going to be a Dimensions in Time one. It was Big Ron there, basically. It was the thing, because Big Ron was, of course, from EastEnders, to tie it back to EastEnders. We should also mention that not only is the Radio Times doing an Adventure in Space and Time tweet-along on May 23rd with Mark Gatiss and Sacha Dhawan, which is great. I love that. It's Mark Gatiss's clearly his best entry into the Doctor Who canon. I love that movie 2 bits. But there are others. I know that Pit Medley did a War Games one over this past week. I know TARDIS Monkey is doing a anniversary of the TV movie on May 27th, which is the UK broadcast date. And if there's any others out there, I'm sorry. This is not an exhaustive list. This is just
there was a Three Doctors one.
TARDIS Monkey did a Three Doctors one too.
Yeah. Ago.
Yeah, TARDIS Monkey's sort of been focusing on the classic series a little bit more, and ever since they've done that, a certain someone who hunts out missing episodes has been a lot more quieter on Twitter about that. So that's good. So it's but you're right there, Eric. It feels like there's no real structure to our lives right now. It's sort of to say you are now watching this episode at this exact time. It almost feels like why you got to tell me what to do and when to do it, man? What are you, a narc? It's just like
that's what the TV industry has been moving away from steadily over the past however many years. So.
But of course, that's why it's a communal celebration. It's not like, hey, everybody, watch this on your own time, and then we'll start tweeting about it at this time. That's not going to happen. There's still an appointment viewing element to this, which I quite enjoy. But so it's nice that people are doing these, as we've said each week. It's fun. Other stuff that has been happening. So Time Lord Victorious. Did we talk about this last week? I feel like we did.
Yep.
What is it? What is it?
I have that problem too.
I'm trying to follow along with this, and I have no idea what it means.
It's a lot of stuff. I
compared it to Shadows of the Empire, the Star Wars version of this from the 90s.
I'm
Again,
not sure that's helping.
killing the
but,
vibe.
Yeah, that's not helping me in the least.
What I'm
I
going to
know.
guess is what it is. It's a multi-platform story. So just think of let's say it's the Daleks master plan, except each of the 12 episodes is on a different format. For instance, the first two things that were released are books: All Flesh is Grass by Una McCormack and The Night, the Fool, and the Dead by Steve Cole. So there's 2 books now coming out, and then there's going to be probably like a other thing, like an escape room for some reason is going to be involved in this, and like there's going to be stuff perhaps, and Big Finish will be involved as well, like an audio play element.
And a comic
it's going to be a big giant gestalt, if you will, a gestalt.
About 10
story.
years ago, they started calling this kind of thing transmedia. I think that's a pretty problematic term nowadays. That probably shouldn't be appropriated, but that's what they used to call it.
It could be like hypermedia or something. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I think I would be more interested because this theoretically could be sort of at least partially up my alley with some of this stuff. If I had any sense of what they were doing narratively. And they're not really saying much. They're just like, it's like these doctors and this time, and it seems very big and vague. And why is it called Time Lord Victorious anyway? And I'm sure more details will be coming out, but it feels like it feels a little bit like they're putting the cart before the horse.
It does a bit, saying here's this giant thing, and then we'll start filling in the pieces of it. Yeah, because like the first book by Steve Cole comes out October 1st. The second by Una McCormack is December 10th. So are these the first 2 elements of this? Are there going to be other stuff that happens that is actually released beforehand that'll tie into this? We don't know right now. So does that answer your question, Eric? I don't know if that clears anything
Further
It
confusing.
answers it by saying no one knows right now,
Okay, good.
which is fine.
Okay, that's all right. This is exciting.
To kind of answer your question, Steve, I'm just going back to like the initial release of the information, and it's
All right.
so like Una McCormack's book was late December, December 10th. So according to the initial blurb, it says starting in September 2020, over 12 weeks is when all this stuff comes out through to January 2021. So Una McCormack's book, for example, it's going to be later in the run.
Yeah.
So there's probably a
interesting.
whole bunch of other stuff, whether it's the Big Finish or the comics or the immersive theater. Whatever that's
Intrigued to
gonna
see
be.
how that will happen. Intrigued to see how that.
See, I'm just
That's,
glad good people are getting employed with this, so that I'm okay with that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that clears it up. I suppose we'll see more details as they come out in the various different platforms.
Well,
but
the biggest problem is possibly anyway going to be. So we have the announcement of these 2 books. Cool. One's October, one's December, but contextually that is kind of meaningless because we don't know what else is going to come out before, between, after, all that kind of stuff, and where these fit in, and how much of the other stuff, and how to acquire and consume.
And will there be a set order? You know, are these things, sequentially happening? Do you need to watch this first before you read this, and so on?
And what happens if you don't live where the escape room is? How much of the story will you miss out?
Exactly. I can guarantee you that you won't live near where the escape room is, because that just sounds like a thing that says not in your area.
For most of us, yeah.
So, well, we'll see.
I'm just reading the blurbs now, which I had skimmed but hadn't really looked at. I don't know that this is timed well, because it's about the Doctor traveling back to the Dark Times to try to stop a race that was responsible for bringing death to the universe.
To be fair, that is often what happens in Doctor Who, isn't it? I mean, it's don't they usually do that?
No, I mean, but like these creatures were the things that introduced the concept of death.
Like
Before these, there was no death.
Oh.
And the Doctor apparently discovers this, and later on decides, I need to stop them so there's no death.
So how are they not
Victorious.
fitting Miracle Day into all this?
Yeah, so I was going to say like that. That was the start. That was the start of it. That's how
I was going to go, and I'm like, oh, he's actually got a point. Never mind.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm not sure that the timing of that is going to be about a race that spreads death throughout the universe. It's going to be super received.
That's a good
at this
point.
time.
That's a very good point. Well, we'll see how they do that. Maybe there'll be some course corrections as these things come out. Who knows? This is exciting though. There are Maze Theory is working on the same company that did the Edge of Time game, which is the VR Doctor Who game, is working on 2 more Doctor Who games. One of which, at least, is for consoles like Xbox, which I have. I have an Xbox. There might be a Doctor Who game on a console that lazy schlubs like me can play. So
Lazy
probably only sold in Europe.
Hopefully on the PS4, which is much more European-centric, and I now have that, having shifted from Xbox to PS4. A religious schism has occurred.
As one who recently bought a Switch, it's going to be out for the Switch, and I know that's going to be through the Nintendo eShop.
Oh, nice.
So
I also have
I don't know if
Switch.
it's going to be. So for the other stuff, I don't know if it's going to be through PlayStation Network and Xbox, store and whatnot.
live, yeah. Well, if A, we'll have to have them released first, and then B, we'll have to see how many hoops we have to jump through to get them. I ordered a cricket game from overseas because I wanted to play a cricket, and they told me that I couldn't put it on my machine, but it works. Don Bradman's cricket works on my Xbox 360. So
I'm just impressed that you play Don Bradman's cricket. That's pretty amazing, actually.
that I play. Well, I wasn't very good at it, but actually, I was too good.
It's the sheer bloody mindedness involved with playing cricket on your Xbox in Canada. That's something.
That's part of it.
There's I don't know if any of you know the McElroy brothers who do My Brother and Me and various other podcasts.
I'm aware of their work.
Yeah, 2 of them are video game journalists or have been in the past, and they have a YouTube series where they use character creations in various video games to make these hideous monstrosities.
Okay.
And in one of these, they found a cricket game that had character, and they have no idea. So they make this character, and then they try to play the game. They don't know how cricket works. They don't know what it is, and it's really quite funny when they're just like, cricket, hit it, cricket, and it's really quite good. So I recommend Monster Factory.
That sounds good, actually.
It was good.
I love cricket getting a good thrashing sometimes because it is a ridiculously complicated game when you think about it. And then you learn about it, and then Black Orchid is the best episode of all time.
That's the only way Black Orchid.
It's so good. It's so good. Once you finally understand cricket, it's like I have just learned another
I would rather
language.
learn the Charleston, and I will never learn the Charleston.
I'd rather eat at the buffet.
Patrick,
I'll take a screwdriver.
Actually, funnily enough, now that buffet is the deadliest thing in that episode.
It's a good point, actually. Wow. That was like Spanish flu would just like clear it up.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow. Man. The olden days. Back in global pandemics were threatening us all. The last bit of news, hey, Who'Atlanta, which was a conference. I sound like a person who doesn't know what Doctor Who conventions are and calls them.
Or is trying to make it more important and academic sounding than it actually is.
That too was a convention that had intended to wrap up last year, but they are putting on one more at least. Convention on May 30th, online, virtually, for free, with such guests as Sophie Aldred, Rachel Talalay, Dominic Glynn, and John Davey. That's happening May 30th, I think, from like 12 to 8 or something Eastern time on the 30th, which I believe is probably a Saturday.
Two weeks from today as we record.
2 weeks from Saturday. So that's pretty cool. I'm curious to see what if other non-Wizard World type conventions go this route. It'll be intriguing to see how.
I could talk for work. Like for work, I've gone to a bunch of webinars / conferences in the last couple of weeks where it's great because I just get up in my PJs and report on something. And it's even gotten to the point where like if I want, there was stuff we couldn't do because it would cost too much to fly me down and all the rest of it. Well, that doesn't matter anymore. So I can just go report on a technology conference in California because it ain't in California anymore, really. So I could see more of this, or maybe a hybrid. Maybe when conventions happen again, the cheaper ones happen online. You know what I mean? Now that we've kind of test run it.
Yeah, I mean...
A hybrid, you say.
A hybrid, yes, is me. Have you just watched that season? It still doesn't make any damn sense.
Yeah, I don't.
No.
We're still searching for it. I know that there's a convention a couple years ago. I think I had Tom Baker over a Skype call, essentially.
That was Regen.
It was Regen Who, yeah.
I actually did that with Robert Llewellyn at Anglicon in Seattle.
That's right.
A couple years ago.
Yeah. So there is precedent, I suppose, but for these things to go full on, it's interesting.
There's that many years ago that Toronto Doctor Who group had Stephen Moffat over Skype, and space was involved and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, that's right.
2011, 10.
Yeah, that was the premiere that we got. The Doctor, the BBC America had a world tour. We had Stephen Moffat on a Skype call. That was the difference between our two nations in the eyes of the BBC. But so
one has money and the other is Canada.
Thank you.
The other is Canada as our other national anthem. That and this content's not available in your region.
Yeah. Oh God, that is the first line of our national anthem right there. So Eric, that wraps up our news list. Our commentary is coming, but I obviously, you are doing podcasts still because you're on the Writers' Room, which of course wrapped up its classic Who element, and you've been on the Outer Limits with Kyle Anderson, my
Yes.
Memory Cheats co-host. I know that you are now winding down the Outer Limits and moving on to other things. Are you able to tease or even announce what those plans are post Outer Limits?
I am, because the episode in which we announced it just dropped yesterday.
Excellent.
So our last Outer Limits episode will be June of this year. So next month's episode is our last Outer Limits. July through December of 2020 will be Sapphire and Steel.
Oh, nice. I've tried watching that on Tubi. It's still baffling.
No, I've seen it once. Kyle, I think, has only seen a couple of the stories.
Yeah.
But it feels like a good connection with the Outer Limits, and also obviously it draws on elements of Doctor Who as well, because it is sort of a weirdly gothic horror sci-fi thing.
That looks like crap, just like old Doctor Who.
It looks very cheap at times, yeah. But it's about the writing with Sapphire.
Oh, that's not a criticism. I love stuff that looks cheap.
I love it when it looks like crap.
Yes.
So that'll take us through the end of 2020, and then in January 2021, we begin with actually revived Doctor Who, with the new series, if we're still calling it that. The first 10 seasons, we're essentially parceling the RTD and the Moffat eras together, because Chibnall has shown no inclination so far to bring back any writers from that time except for himself.
Right.
Which is his prerogative. He wants to do a different show. That's fine. Mm-hmm. But that means we kind of have a 10-season stint that's very self-contained with a lot of shared writers and a lot of interesting stories to look at. So 2021 will be returning to being Doctor Who, the Writers' Room.
Fascinating.
Interesting excitement.
Yeah, so are you going to be looking at like individual writers or just like a season at a time sort of thing? Kind of like what you're doing
Individual writers still, to try to
cool.
see what they bring, the same way we did with Classic Who. Obviously, the showrunner has a much heavier hand in Modern Who. But, we did the unit years where Terrence Dix kind of he utilized everything and sort of formalized it and put it all together so it felt consistent and coherent. Sayward added guns to everything. So,
guns and mercenaries.
His script notes add guns everywhere.
Add guns. That's why in Mark of the Rani, suddenly Luke just starts shooting people with a submachine gun.
What's that period specific?
Sayward got into this. Like, listen, we're an episode and a half into this. He hasn't fired a machine gun yet. What is the problem? Where are the mercenaries, Pip and Jane? Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's completely plausible the Rani brought, advanced weaponry to.
Why wouldn't she? The meddling monk did, so it makes perfect sense that the Rani.
Yeah, I'm sure. So we'll be looking at sort of, I think a lot of it will be that sort of balance of how the writers sort of express themselves while still sort of conforming to the arc and the vibe of that season and of the overall era of the show. It'll be really interesting.
Very much so. I look forward to that. At that and the Sapphire and Steel. It's been a very slow going showing Erica and our friend Annette episodes of Sapphire and Steel. It took literally like a year to get through the first story, which is a 6-part story.
It certainly feels like it, yeah.
Yeah, but like we watched like an episode, like 2 months later we watched the next episode. Like it took a long time. And then the second one is the train station, which everyone says is amazing. And there's a whole bunch of it's fascinating because there's one story that isn't written by P.J. Hammond. It's written by Don Houghton of Inferno and Mind of Evil fame.
Yep.
Wow. So and I should point out that all the episodes are on Shout Factory TV, which I think is a free app on.
They're on another one too. I think it's Tubi.
It is on Tubi as well. So like this is a series that used to be like hard to get, and I ordered the DVD and stuff, but it's actually available to watch for free on these streaming services. So
the Star Lost, which I have the DVD of, and so do you, is not.
It's
still ungettable except on DVD.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Erik, we are not going to wait 9 years or however long it's been to have you on the show again. It's been delightful talking to you again in a Doctor Who content. Maybe one day you'll come back to Gallifrey 1 whenever Gallifrey 1 reopens and everything.
If it goes virtual, I may be able to attend this year. We'll see.
Well, gosh, if you can find the time, that would be great to pop along to a thing. But it's been lovely, Erik. Where can we find the writers' room on the old interwebs?
You can find it at dwtwr.libsyn.com. That's Doctor Who: The Writers' Room, our original title. Easiest way to find everything I do is just follow me on Twitter at SJCAustenite, AUSTENITE.
You got it. Awesome. Thanks, Erik, for coming along.
Thank you so much for having me back, guys.
You betcha. After the break, it's the first... Hey, wow, you thought this was great. We get to watch Planet of the Daleks next, everyone. The first 2 episodes with guest Toby Hadoke. Welcome back. We're halfway through the Dalek War box set commentary, I guess we'll call it. Planet of the Daleks, episodes 1 and 2. Yes, that is a slight resignation in my voice about having to watch Planet of the Daleks after watching Frontier in Space, but there's a noticeable uptick in my voice here because we get to welcome on Toby Hadoke for this commentary. Hello, Toby.
Hello, how are you?
Well, we're isolated like everyone else in the world,
yes.
It seems, or at least as we should be isolated in the world to help do what we can. I said this earlier on the podcast. We're recording this on March 21st, but these episodes are probably going out to the public in mid to late May at this point. So just be wary of that, listeners, when we are making timely references to what's happening right now.
If some people who are now dead seem to be very much alive, it's because the podcast was recorded several weeks ago.
That's true. Toby Hadoke's last contribution to Doctor Who.
He died as he lived, watching terrible episodes of Doctor Who.
And on that note, let's rip the Band-Aid off and do this. As Toby has pointed out, and as we have pointed out during the course of these commentaries, we're about to press play on Planet of the Daleks as pretty much everyone else around the world is pressing play on Day of the Doctor all at once.
I mean, exactly now. I mean, this is happening right. So all the people listening to this are currently watching Day of the Doctor. But because, so it's a good job I honour my engagements, isn't it?
They get the best of both worlds.
They do.
Yeah.
That's a different one. Yeah, I think all the Star Trek fans are doing that next weekend, actually. But... all right, let's do this. Planet of the Daleks, the greatest hits of Terry Nation, episode 1 in 3, 2, 1, play. There. Who needs Day of the Doctor when we have this, right?
I can hear it. Can I hear you?
Yes. Turn the volume down on your QuickTime, Toby.
On my QuickTime, which is...
Or on your video player, yeah.
Oh, hang on. Yes, right. I can do that. Oh, you see?
This is the most exciting part of Planet Dogs Part 1, what we're doing right now.
There we go. Is that better?
It is better, yeah. Well, only you could hear through your headphones, I'll bet. And let me tell you, I did the same thing as well.
As did I.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there we are. Well, I've got it now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's
how does it feel doing commentary since you host so many of them, yet are rarely allowed to give your opinion?
But I know this is probably the only episode of Doctor Who I've never done commentary on. No, it's because obviously one should be as in the background as much as possible when you're doing it with the people who were actually in it. So I'm careful not to say what I think, although of course I largely like Doctor Who. So this will be. I will be unleashed. I like Joe's outfit in Frontier in Space, and this was, of course, when I first watched this was all a bit of a surprise to me because none of it's in the book.
I suppose not.
You know the
also
the reprise from.
Is this the first bed in the TARDIS? I think it is.
Yeah, no, because they had the bed in like Edge of Destruction.
They have the bendy space beds in Edge of Destruction.
You're right.
Yeah. Because I suppose target novelization is sort of like tried to tamp down the episodic nature of stories, and so they could be better sold as single volumes, I suppose. So
yeah, it's almost like there's barely any connection between Frontier in Space and Planet of the Daleks, and they managed to make that come across they managed to contrive that in the book.
Thinking of the book series, so I know for the US, Pinnacle did Space War, right? But did they do Planet? I don't know if they did both.
Did Pinnacle did Space War? I don't know if they did. I think they only did Day of the Daleks.
Oh, I thought they did. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Because I know you're thinking of the Ogron or
the Ogron on the cover.
Yeah, the giant gorilla spaceship. And the unit spaceship, which confused me as a kid, and I thought that unit was a space agency when I finally saw John Pertwee Doctor Who several years after.
Well, here's an embarrassing thing. My first encounter with Planet of the Daleks was when I was camping. And when we went camping, you'd pack a few Doctor Who books because my older brothers had Doctor Who books, so I sort of inherited them all. And I can't remember who we were with, but we were with somebody who was a kid who was with another family that we knew who must have come with us. And I remember, him picking up the Doctor Who book and going, "Oh, Doctor Who," and I went, "Yeah, I love Doctor Who. I know loads about Doctor Who." And then he went, "Oh, is this a good one?" And I went, "Yeah, Planet of the Daleks is really good." And he opened it up, and the first chapter's called Joe Alone. And he went, "Oh, Joe Alone," and I went, "Yeah, Joe's brilliant. He's a really good character." And he went, "Joe, she did this." And he went, "Joe's," and I went, "Oh." So I've ever since I've never pretended to know anything about Doctor Who because it only leads to trouble.
And thus your career was launched.
Yeah, Space War was not done by Pinnacle. Yeah.
No, didn't think so. Joey was brilliant. The facade is knocked down fairly early in your life. That's the humility of being a Doctor Who fan. Like that, like you're already humble enough being a Doctor Who fan, but
yes, you're pretty low on the pecking order. But then when you turn out to be, it's like saying, I'm not as good a leper as I thought I was.
I'm an even worse leper.
Yeah.
I know I told kids at school I like the show, and that didn't go as well as I thought, but I was also told I don't understand their accents. I'm like, they're talking in English?
Yeah, but
it's where English comes from? Like, why is this difficult?
Let's make a note of the TARDIS set, which is, I think, my favorite. Well, it looks best in the Three Doctors, but I quite like this TARDIS set, and this is the last time we see it because I think it's the last time we see a TARDIS. We see until Death to Daleks, I suppose it shows up, but I just like it. I think it was the original Round the Walls. Clayton Hickman could tell you more about that, but
he's very good. I'm assuming he wasn't available this evening. He's probably watching the Day of the Doctor.
He probably is. He moderated actually the DVD commentary on this.
This he did, yeah.
Yeah. I had to. I checked that because I think, wait a second, did Toby actually do this one way back when?
No, it was during the sort of crossover period. I think it might have been was it in the can when I started? But it came out after because I think it came out after some that I'd done. No, I don't think there's a moderator. Is there a moderator on this? Because Clayton did Frontier in Space because it's only Barry Letts, Terrence Dix, and Katie Manning. And is there a moderator on Planet of the Daleks?
Oh, I'd have to check. I've
got a feeling because they got a few of the guest cast. I'm not sure they bothered with a moderator, but Clayton's on Frontier because it's the same three people for 6 episodes.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas you did your best for sort of patching different people in for episodes as they were required, basically. Or at least that started to be a thing. And what you continue to do for the Phantom Films ones.
For the DVDs, that was it's because we felt that the same 3 people for 6 episodes is too much. As we were going sort of further down the cast list, it was like, well, why don't we if that person's in just 1 episode, get them in. And I think that made for a much more the revolving door. It was John Kelly's idea. The revolving door, I think, breathed bit of fresh life into it, and gave people a rest and all of that sort of thing. And I think works much better than having some of the early ones. You've got 2 people on the whole, the whole of the 4 episodes of a story, which I think is a big ask.
Yeah. Especially if their character died off in episode 2.
Yeah, I think Nicholas Parsons is on episode 4 of The Curse of Fenric. He hangs around.
Because why not? You're here.
Although we did just do that with the Faceless Ones. Chris Tranchell isn't in episode 3, but he was going to do the episode 4 animation, so we just kept him there and just carried on.
And talked
For all
about
this
Android.
story's faults, this jungle's not so bad, this one particular bit.
But it's in studio, that's the problem.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not Planet Evil, so...
I loved the book of this. When I first got it on a sort of bootleg video, my heart sank at how this sort of feature film, because the script is a bit like a sort of, Saturday afternoon adventure serial, but I'd watched all of those made on film, and then seeing Doctor Who try, it was an indication that sometimes the most exciting books were perhaps too exciting for the small screen, and this was one of the biggest. It had been one of my favourite stories in book form, and it then became one of my least favourite stories in TV form. And then when I did Running Through Corridors with Rob and watched it on a week by week basis and in context, I found a newfound love for it and really enjoyed it when we did Running Through Corridors. And this is the first time I've seen it since, actually.
Oh, well, I hope it's not like a yo-yo type of thing, and how you've gone from love to hate with us watching it.
Well, I'm watching it with you guys now, so how can I have anything other than love for it?
Something tells me that you won't be watching
Give us
episodes 3 through 6 once we're done here, but
I'll be live tweeting them, mate.
it's the because Day of the Doctor will probably be wrapped up by that point. So you might as well, I mean, what do you do for
I'm going to rub it into those losers.
You've watched the best, now here's the rest.
Yeah, you've been watching. Anyone can watch. I mean, John Hurt and all the Doctors, and
all that nonsense.
I've been watching Spitting Eye Plants.
and Joe dipping her toes into podcasting.
Yeah. So that's true, actually. Yeah, we were joking about Delgado doing a podcast last episode. So is it purely the visuals that we don't like this, or is it the fact that Terry Nation basically just uses all of his old tropes again for running a Doctor Who episode? I can't tell why we find this so disappointing.
It's both. Like I think as we'll get to it, I think at the end of episode 1 with the CSO spray paint Dalek, and then cut to actual physical prop, and it just the transition looks bad.
But that's why they don't have it in the reprise.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah. So that's you're being spoiled because of this modern age where you'd have had a week to forget it last time.
I suppose so. Well, actually, when we would have watched this as younger people, we saw the omnibus.
Oh, the omnibus. Yeah.
So I don't remember what would have been shown.
That's your fault with messing with science. Hybridizing them, sticking them all together. It's odd, isn't it?
Joe is the hybrid. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I don't know where I stand on this. Should we be annoyed with writers that were experienced television writers who were over enthusiastic about what could be could be pulled off in an electronic studio? Or are we going, but this is the crazy ambition that makes Doctor Who the brilliant show that it is? Should people write within their limitations, or should people go, well, no, I don't care that it's multi-camera in a small studio. I'm going to have a volcano that spews ice, or, or any of the mad things Bob Baker and Dave Martin do. Do you go, well, actually, those guys were the ones that were sort of seizing the opportunity they had with Doctor Who? Or do we go, no, the really good writers are the ones that knew to set it in a couple of sets and with a small cast and blah-de-blah. And I don't know how I feel about that. It depends how many biscuits I've had.
I don't think it's exclusive. Like, you can do great work with both, right? So, like, look at that Mission of the Unknown those kids put together, which is essentially that. Like, they went out of their way to use the limitations of the time, even though it's not the time anymore, and it still works.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's great to have people go over ambitious, because sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But at least they tried.
Yeah,
I'd rather also have the effort. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I love how it's just as much effort to write a bottle episode. It's sometimes tougher in some ways.
I just see a bottle on the screen.
Yeah. I also love how this TARDIS is an ode to IKEA.
It really is, isn't it? Like the cheapest, like the barest bones IKEA too. As if there's any other. There's no artisanal IKEAs, I suppose. I think it's easier to appreciate ambition after the fact than living through it the first time round. You know, I could appreciate the Web Planet even though I don't like it, but like God bless him for trying, you know. But if that was like going to be the Doctor Who that I was watching for 6 weeks in a row, they're going, what is this nonsense?
Yeah, although I mean, my first encounters with a lot of TV Doctor Who, because most of my first encounters with the stories had been as the Target books, was one of disappointment. And I had to sort of learn to love, I mean, I still, loved it and it was still exciting to watch them, but because they never quite matched up to the pictures I created in my mind, it was only often the second or third time I watched a story that I sort of appreciated the television version more than what my mind had invented as a result of the Target books.
Hmm.
Speaking of what's on screen, we've got Doctor Who royalty here with Prentis Hancock and Bernard Horsfall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Prentis Hancock looks very cross already, doesn't he?
Does he ever look anything but?
He's got nowhere else to go.
He's got a resting Prentis face.
He does.
At least
Look how
these space
furious
are
he
ridiculous
is.
as the guard suits. Like these suits are kind of ridiculous, but they're not as bad as the ones from the previous from Frontier in Space.
No, they're definitely a step in the right direction.
Well, they're not; those aren't bad. They're impressive costumes. They're just impractical as hell.
It's fascinating to watch Prentis Hancock in his small role in Spearhead from Space because he's not like this. For the only time in Doctor Who, he doesn't have resting Prentis face, as you say, Chris. And you expect him to. You know, obviously that's the reporter that's behind it all. And not Telfrin Thomas.
He's rather jolly in Spearhead, is Prentis.
Yes.
I think something obviously he didn't get the story. He's still waiting outside that phone box.
Yeah. He needs to make a call. I tell you, Jimmy, there's something up here. Back in the day when people were called Jimmy.
Yeah, in fact, because Captain Monroe's called Jimmy as well. Is everyone in Spearhead from Space called Jimmy?
I think so. I think he might be, actually. They saw the brief from the invasion and they go, everyone's called Jimmy, so let's just call everyone Jimmy.
So we've got Jimmy Tarrant, Jimmy Weber, and Jimmy Codal here.
Tarrant. How many iterations of Terran or Tarrant is this in the Terry Nation canon?
Oh, it was slightly... The ship wasn't at its most robust there, I would say.
Jill Tarrant is yet to come.
Jill
Tarrant's
Tarrant.
yet to come.
Yeah.
Dev Tarrant from Blake 7. This is Terran. Anybody comb through the episodes of MacGyver that he wrote for in the 80s? If there's any Terrans in there, perhaps?
I can't say as I have, no.
Oh, yeah, because it's a really great idea. That idea of it's a sort of very Terranation-y sort of schlocky thing. You know, the planet that is deadly. And doesn't it on the back cover of the book say Joe was being followed by the invisible enemy? And you went, oh no, that's another Doctor Who story.
I did do that, yes.
And CSO used to strike fear, because I always used to watch Doctor Who with the idea that when the BBC got sensible and repeated the whole thing and everyone would fall in love with it over again and then I would become king. I always worried about CSO because it was the thing that sort of kids of my age would sort of go, oh, that's a bad special effect. So bad CSO always struck terror into my heart. When I look at it now, and I don't care at all. But
No,
it's amazing the things that worry you, you know. I used to worry that somebody would just walk in when I was watching an episode of Doctor Who and see a bad bit. Whereas, of course, if they saw a good bit, they'd go, oh, we were wrong, Toby. This is the best thing ever. I wanted to sort of convert people.
Yeah. So you had to wait around for that, 2 minutes of the deadly assassin. Oh, this bit looks good. Press pause. Everyone,
this
come
bit,
in.
which totally doesn't make sense without context.
Yeah.
I'm afraid I would have a video in the machine, and if I was pootling about in the sort of main room there, and if I heard somebody coming in, I would press play to see if at that good point of whatever story it was, and hope that they would go, oh, I might stay and watch this. They never did, but it was my attempt to I know I can't believe I'm admitting all this sort of thing.
No, I believe it. I totally believe it. I think it's akin to like, how can I nonchalantly turn around in this chair as they come into the room? That is basically what you're doing.
Yeah.
Now we don't have to do that anymore. Yeah,
now everybody loves Doctor Who.
Exactly.
Which is weird. Still.
Yeah.
So, probably says more about me than it does about them. But
so Spiridons have pointy feet, as you said, Chris.
Kind of they're teardrop feet, I guess.
Yeah.
So how much oxygen does the TARDIS have? Because you got this, and you think of like the episode Oxygen, where they're extending a field out.
Right.
Into a space station. So it's got lots.
They're using roundels for storage. This is a criminal travesty of roundel use.
I think like there's basically all of John Pertwee's cloaks are sort of stuffed in them.
It's the IKEA TARDIS. Everything is storage.
Not a rumpus room, for God's sakes. What is this?
I am amazed actually that IKEA hasn't come up with a design like this for like basically wall storage. And if they did,
actually,
I'd
that's
buy
a good
it.
point.
Yeah, there's the
I'm amazed.
chart of the TARDIS door hinge there.
I'm amazed somebody hasn't done a short trip or some sort of story where the Doctor assembles all of his shelves.
From IKEA, space IKEA.
Yeah. Venusian IKEA dough.
This is us several weeks from now wearing our safety ponchos and bubble hats.
There used to be a show on, I want to say it was BBC4, but I might be wrong, called I've Never Seen Star Wars. And Stephen Fry was on there once upon a time assembling IKEA furniture. I think it was a desk, because he had never done it before. And the whole point of the show was doing things he'd never done before.
Apparently that show doesn't care about his mental health.
Well, he got quite angry during the process at how
he should
how ineffectual he was.
I don't think Bernard Horsfall was in Doctor Who when David Maloney wasn't directing.
He wasn't. It was always under Maloney.
I'm digging Prentis's hair here.
I know.
He's got total helmet
sadly.
hair.
Oh wow,
helmet wig. Yeah,
he did just get out of bed.
He's still cross.
He's just like.
You think he's really hungry?
That could be it.
Well, he can't eat. His hands are covered in plastic and goop.
He still needs the guy like Tim Priest peeled his gloves off, but
that's just inefficient.
Uh-huh.
Meanwhile, he's infecting his gun.
Well, we did see a costume change, didn't he? He came out. He said, "Well, I've recovered my consciousness. I'm going to change my clothes." I suppose that's probably a good thing. He probably stunk after being in, as we counted, 14 different incarceration situations in Frontier in Space.
Ah, I see, yes.
Gets a little bit gamey, so...
Oh, this sort of stuff when I was young. Oh, they've referred to an old story. This is amazing. It's almost like watching the Hartnell era.
Which, I mean, to be fair, I mean, yes, Terry Nation basically rewrites a lot of the things he already did for earlier Dalek stories in this, his first Dalek story since Dalek's Master Plan. But, you know, nobody had recorded the Daleks or the other episodes. They, you know, the Target books hadn't even come out by then. Like this, for a generation of kids, this is their first time seeing these tales.
I think Ian Levine hadn't yet found the Daleks.
Oh, God, no. That's 5 years after this.
Yeah.
And I'll be the first to admit that when Time Lash mentioned the third Doctor visiting the planet, I was like, oh, wow. Even though it's Time Lash.
Yeah. So it's important to see these things in context, you know. I mean, the same kind of goes for Victory of the Daleks, which very much leans heavily into Power of the Daleks in the first quarter of that episode, as sort of being a remake of that, knowing that people probably have not seen Power of the Daleks.
Yes.
It's well before the animated version came out, too. So, like, let's do a riff on that, because it's a really great story that no one will know about if we don't reference it right here. But this, of course, is just Terry Nation going, well, let's just write.
Or Russell T. Davis
He's also not
bringing back the Macra and Gridlock.
Yeah, he's not the only writer to ever cannibalize himself. What about Douglas Adams basically ripping off Shada for Dirt Gently?
Well, using Shada for Dirk because it was abandoned at that point, but
I know. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
He's not the only one who's
He
done
still
this.
got paid more than once for the same thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I do like that Terrence Dix, because I think Terry Nation wanted to write all 6 episodes and drop him off on his doorstep and flee like he did previously, probably. But Terrence Dix says, no, send them in one at a time, and we can work on them as they come in, which is probably for the best.
Yeah.
So
He's a wise old fox, was Terrence Dix. He's even on Lookout Furious. I bet he's still like that, even though we can't see him now. Still
yeah.
Straight up method.
Yeah.
How do you
Bernard
prepare
Horse.
for a role like that? Like, do you think of your dog dying as a child or something? Like,
Yeah.
Well, not until now, but thank you, Chris.
Bernard Horsfall was going to be a guest on our Radio Free Skaro live show back at Gallifrey 1 in 2013, I think it was. And then he died about 2 weeks prior.
Yeah, he died just before he was due to fly out, didn't he?
Yeah.
He's very good, Bernard Horsfall. He has a very solid, serious, but he sort of managed to do the solid, serious gravitas stuff without being boring, which is quite a skill.
It's tough being a hero because you know, the hero is often sort of the most straight-laced one, so you could sort of cast off different roles opposite him, sort of, and they seem more drastic and sharp. You know, like I credit like Mark Hamill as being a great performance in Star Wars because he is very straight down the middle. You can't have Han Solo if you don't have Luke Skywalker, but it's a very boring part because he's not evil, he's not conflicted. Well, he's conflicted a little bit, but
it's easier to be good as Han Solo than it is to be good as Luke Skywalker.
yes, very much, especially when you're acting opposite a puppet and a dustbin for most of Empire Strikes Back.
so I think this is evidence that the Doctor is Banksy.
Yes. What a complicated visual effect that they.
Well, they're not spraying necessarily where the stuff is, you know, coming to into view.
Why is this a surprise?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's called Planet of the Daleks. He literally asked the Time Lords to send the TARDIS to where the Daleks are. He finds the Daleks.
After coming off
Daleks.
an episode featuring the Daleks in the last half, roughly.
Well,
Good old Lord Vader.
Darth Vader. It's actually that was where the inspiration of the name came from.
I think if I saw a Dalek, even if I was expecting one, I'd go Daleks, though, just because I couldn't resist.
Daleks.
They're just a Cybermen, just to confuse everyone.
Yeah.
See who's the pet.
Hazel Pethig is Terry Gilliam's wife.
Is she really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
I may be
Costume
wrong, but
design.
she certainly worked on Monty Python. I think she is, and it's the only Doctor Who she did. But now that I've said that with confidence, because this isn't one I've researched, I might be wrong.
Well, I suppose we have 25 minutes to find out the real answer as we watch episode 2 of Planet of the Daleks. So cue it all up. Everyone got it queued up there on your officially purchased DVDs. Good.
Yep.
Here we go then. Planet of the Daleks in 3, 2, 1, play. There we are. So what was her name? Hazel
Pethig. She's not Terry Gilliam's wife, but she did work on all the Monty Pythons.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry.
That's all right.
Fire me from all things Doctor Who now.
Retroactively edit you out of all those commentaries you were on.
Yeah.
But still, Monty Python. Wow. So interesting. The life of a BBC costume designer, going from thing to thing.
Yeah, well, I think it's pretty good if you've done Doctor Who and Monty Python. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's like the Holy Trinity if you found another one to put in there. Star Cops, we'll say.
And I guess even beyond Python, it looks like she did Time Bandits and Holy Grail and Fish Called Wanda. And
Oh, wow.
Yes, I think somebody must have told me back in the day that she was married to Gilliam, and that just stuck in my head, even though it was wrong. Anyway.
Well.
And one episode of Wurzel Gummidge.
So maybe John Pertwee's the connection. Just building her whole career up just to work with John Pertwee. Basically, by not shooting much location on this story, they bought an extra day's location on the Green Death, which I think looks best because of it. Sometimes you have to make these sacrifices when you're making Doctor Who. It's kind of like all of Series 7B being slightly uneven and dodgy in order to allow Stephen Moffat to concentrate on making Day of the Doctor the best thing that he possibly could do.
Is that your way of just rubbing in that we're watching this instead of Day of the Doctor?
Yeah, keep mentioning that thing we're not watching.
Little bit. We can watch that anytime. How often can we have this time for ourselves, gentlemen? Let's cherish this. Let's save this day instead.
Yes, we all remember when everybody came around together to celebrate Planet of the Daleks.
I mean, all the elements are there. I don't precisely know why I think so little of this story. Because I think even when I was a kid, when I was very easily pleased when it came to Doctor Who, I thought this one's a little bit less than successful. But here we are.
Because it just takes so damn long.
I don't know.
And there's so much in Frontier in Space, and there's so much less in this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it sort of should work.
Because it comes across like that.
Because the sort of small band of people, some of whom live, some of whom die, and lots of bits of jeopardy are quite standard sort of structures for Doctor Who. But I have to say, bless him, Prentis Hancock doesn't help.
Right.
I mean, if anyone had impetuous self-sacrifice written all over him, he even gets an episode ending, doesn't he, Weber?
Oh, isn't that the one? Take him to
the Daleks. You go, oh, yeah, go on then.
Yeah.
I bet he'll be furious.
Yeah. Whatever will happen to Weber? Find out in the next exciting episode of Doctor Who.
Where's his spinoff?
Mm-hmm.
Weber.
Yeah. I mean, he's still around, Prentis Hancock.
He is, very much
He was at Gallifrey 1 a couple of years ago. I interviewed him on stage.
Mm-hmm.
I watched an episode of Space 1999 as research, and I thought, good, he's not even frowning in this. Are you sure this is...
His moustache frowns in Space 1999.
That's true. It does it all the work. He realized halfway through the 1970s, why am I frowning all the time? I could grow a mustache to do it instead.
As long as the mustache got half his pay.
That's true.
It's a funny cut, that, because he finishes talking, then it's like there's a bit missing, because then he just sort of sits down.
There's been an
when
edit
it cuts
there.
To the wide shot, yeah.
Yeah, even the music sort of takes a weird sting there. That is odd. I've often noticed that. It's kind of like basically the first 20 minutes of Reboss Operation, where they had to chop out about 10 minutes worth of footage, and you could really tell the cuts.
Tim Priest is a nice man. I interviewed him when I was at university. I was at university with his daughter, Holly. And I saw him again quite recently and reminded him of that, and he was really lovely.
Oh.
And he's from Shropshire, where I'm from as well. And he's brilliant in the Reginald Perrin as the first Tom, the rather sincere son-in-law. It's a brilliant deadpan comedy performance.
Uh-huh.
He's a nice actor, Tim.
I saw him, I say recent to me, because I had only seen it for the first time, an episode of Midsummer Murders, which is my favorite show just to watch for Doctor Who actors.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one for actor spotting.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite pastimes, especially now. And so when I saw him, I think it's Tim Priest. I think it's him. These are the joys I take in life. So you were interviewing people back in college then, Toby, for Doctor Who?
Yeah, if I got the opportunity, I'd get a cassette tape and and interview people if I knew somebody that knew them or something like that. I mean, I could have taken much better opportunities because the Royal Exchange Theatre was up the road, and all sorts of people like Bernard Bresslaw and John Bennett, and I even worked there when I was in a play and John Ringham was in the next play, and I didn't avail myself of interviewing any of those people, and I wish I had now.
Yeah.
But it's always quite a nerve-wracking thing to do. And that play that John Ringham was appearing in the next play, it was my first professional job, and I thought, well, I can't be the Doctor Who fan guy now. I'm a proper actor, And of course, he'd have been fine. He wouldn't have gone, oh, well, I'm not going to look at him as a real actor now because he's asked to interview me about Doctor Who. He'd have been delighted, I'm sure. But because I knew Holly, Tim's daughter, and Tim had come to Manchester to do a play, he was happy to meet me for lunch, and we went and I've never actually used that interview for anything. I've still got the cassette somewhere.
Oh. There's a Who's Round just waiting for it to be released right there.
Yeah.
Special bonus.
Yeah. Save it. I was going to say save it for the Series 10 box set, but it's already out. So that ship has sailed.
Oh, it has. Yes, it has. Oh, yes. Oh, I should have, shouldn't I? That was silly. But he's on the commentary and the making of, so we're not losing out there.
Right. You'd have just asked him the same damn things anyway.
I see you've reached the point, Toby, of Doctor Who fandom where you're like, oh, that thing's happened, yeah. There's a curve where you know everything, and then it just kind of bends. It goes with age.
Yeah, well, definitely goes with age. I do have the season 10 box set, but I think when you've been involved in something as well, I need a bit of distance because you worry about the things you've done and they make you feel sick. So,
right.
Well, that's just from eating kipper of Trocken.
Yeah.
Yeah. He tried to get me to, that Chris Chapman.
Well, we did a fairly great job of not talking about Planet of the Daleks. I've been pretty pleased with it. Let's talk about Tim Priest's performance here, because that is a remarkable job of being...
He said he thought he looked like a right tit doing this bit. Because I think it had just... When I interviewed him, it wasn't long after it had been repeated on BBC One They repeated it for the 30th anniversary, 93.
Yeah.
So they repeated it on BBC One, including the black and white episode, which is, very unusual. And I think it had not been on that long ago when I interviewed him, and he said he looked at it, thought he looked like an idiot.
Hey, look, some title of the title.
Yeah. I think that's
Michael Misha.
Bumped. Yes. Doing
the whole Thal and then not Thal thing just totally confused me as a kid. Like when I saw Genesis of the Daleks first, and then I found out beforehand there had been these blonde Thal people that I had no context for otherwise.
Yeah, they don't look at all like the ones from the Cushing movie at all, do they?
That too.
How dare they? They have to look exactly the same. I don't care if it's 500 years ago to them. They have to look exactly the same. I do like the like someone's in there. He says, "Yeah, we know. We're Daleks." There's a throwback to Ian getting
when they could stun your legs.
Yeah.
Which of course is easier to do now, where you can control where the laser beam go and which bit of somebody you want to change color. But
yeah.
You just disabled him.
Yeah. I'm struggling to get... That's basically Pertwee after a bad back episode, essentially, right there. It's basically him through all the Planet of the Spiders right here. Get Terry Welsh in. I can't stand up.
Oh, Doctor. He's sad about Joe.
And
I think I think it's the end of a chapter in the book, and I remember thinking that must be the end of an episode and being quite surprised. Oh, he's fine now. Look at him.
Yeah, that's true. That was
different studio block. He's like, fine.
Yeah,
nobody will remember.
Literally the next scene. Gosh. I do like the look of disdain on his as he's riding up the lift. I've done this in the lift a few times.
Look at a Dalek.
Just sort of looking over, going, "You."
Yeah, just doing that. Social distancing in elevators.
He's doing that sort of
best and worst.
He's doing that chewing gum that he hasn't got any gum.
That's true.
It's kind of,
yeah.
It's quite an obtuse move, that, isn't it? It's kind of
We have monitors with ads in my elevators, which annoy me, but also it gives you something to look at other than people.
That's true.
So there's that.
No such luck. Not in this Dalek tyranny. We have no monitors or ads.
I like it when the Daleks are small.
I agree. They're almost more terrifying when they're smaller, you know?
Yeah, it's further away from that. You know, they wanted to get away from man in a suit thing. Well, the smaller they are, the more that you get that impression that and it's a sort of malevolence, small, compact malevolence.
I have to say that shot was poorly directed because we see Kodal the whole time, and he's staring at the Doctor and just waits for his cue, essentially, for the door to close for him to say his line. I think we should have not seen him until we heard him, you know?
But because you have moments like that, there's that bit in The Five Doctors when Susan goes, "Doctor, come and look what I've found." And he goes, "What?" And she goes, "You'll never know." And then it cuts to a wide shot, and it's the TARDIS in the middle of a flat, desolate landscape. And you're like, "You've seen that for miles."
But we have it. The viewer has it, so she's playing it up for the viewer. Yeah, which you shouldn't do. There's one later on in this story where Jo is hidden those two bombs in a brush somewhere, and she gets Lotep to help her. Literally 2 steps away. Like, "Oh, I've hidden them over here. I'll help." They literally step 2 steps over, crouch down. Here they are. It's just like, oh.
Well, is that just to build a relationship or what?
Well, it was supposed to, but maybe they could have walked, I don't know, 3 steps over to the left and gotten the bombs that Jo hid. But
three steps is how far Andrew and Leela went.
Yeah. Speaking of Christopher Tranchell.
It's easy to sort of, and I know Planet of the Daleks gets sort of slightly mocked for this. The sort of, I think, the Discontinuity Guide sort of described them as sort of weak monologues on bravery, and they are a little sort of basic and on the nose. But I think the sentiment behind them is very sweet, and I think there's a very gentle demeanour that Tim Priest has, and I sort of like all of this. I'm not very brave. Well, actually, you know, you did a thing you were scared of. That actually makes you braver than everybody else. And again, I know it's not particularly sophisticated, but I like it. I like the intent behind all of this stuff.
I just have to say that this quote he just did was the epitome of an analysis of fandom. You're a very brilliant scientist, but you have no understanding of people, including yourself. That's fandom, all right?
Yeah.
You're right.
Yes.
Now
I shall go on Twitter.
Yeah, it's the performance that sells it, isn't it? It's Tim Priest's little kind of very wide-eyed, you know, he's very unsure of himself, and at the end of episode 6, you believe that the Doctor has actually helped him out in all this. It's a nice, gentle performance from him. Yeah,
and he's a good piece of casting because he is that sort of, he's got that sort of thing about him. He's got a gentle thing about him.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, we counted in Frontier in Space the amount of incarcerations that happened. I think we could probably count how many moments of charm exist in Planet of the Daleks, and we'd probably hit a similar count of 14. We had 1 there. I'm sure we'll have about 3 or 4 because he has a heart-to-heart with basically every single Thal, although he shoves Jo off onto Rebek. "You're a woman. Speak with her."
You must have things in common.
Yes, you've never met her, but still.
This is just weird looking.
It's kind of good for the day, you know?
You got Zippy mixing up the the whatever.
And actually doing CSO against this fringy background is pretty impressive. Uh-oh. Stark of Infinity all over again.
Are those natural furs or fake? Like, are there actually purple creatures somewhere on Spyridon that they've skinned to make these?
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
I was worried if you're knowledge of zoology was such that you were actually asking if I had some UK insight into going, no, on the wilds of Dartmoor, we have the great purple bears that the Doctor Who production team were able to slay in order to carry off
the original
purple bears were harmed in the making of this episode.
The original Hound of the Baskervilles was this giant purple creature.
That's a way of getting around having to do a CSO shot there. Just holding the bowl out of focus. I see your clever trick, David Maloney. This is the beginning of the helpful Muto trope that Terry Nation likes to write in.
Oh yeah, of course.
It's like Bilal.
This is the pre-Severin, yeah.
Yeah, pre-Severin. Bilal is there, and it's got to be what I can't remember the name of the guy in Destiny of the Daleks, the one prisoner who helps.
Oh, Tyson.
Tyson, played by the deaf actor. Yeah,
yeah, Tim Barlow. Yeah.
Pretty much my entire memory of Destiny of the Daleks has been ruined by Pip Medley's "What Are the Movellans Watching Today?" So I can't remember anything but that.
We've also determined that the sonic screwdriver does nothing in this day and age. It cannot. It literally does not do anything. It can't open doors, which is what it should be doing.
Oh, what in this day and age?
Yeah, well, right here it does. I mean, nowadays, of course, it does.
Well, it can. I mean, it can unscrew things, which I think is a reasonable expectation for a screwdriver.
Right? I call it
the sonic. I call it the sonic barbed wire. Broken bits put back together of
that's true. It welds. Yeah.
Those Daleks are a bit static, aren't they?
They are a bit.
Just a little.
They're having a nap.
But it's still impressive. They have 7 of them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Static or not.
Well, they got him. They hired him out from that Clifford Cully person, who's visual effects person on this. I imagine the Terry Nation Army folks would have a lot more to say about this. So I'm not going to spout any facts that I assume to know because I'm sure they covered it. Especially once the Emperor Dalek rolls on screen, or whatever he's called, Dalek Supreme.
The Gold Dalek, yeah.
The Gold Dalek.
I mean, the Thals do use a lot of single-use plastic, which I have to say suggests that perhaps they deserve everything they get.
And we're not even seeing the carrier bags that they originally bought them in.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm cross.
Just once they should have had him be the actual hero and just be cross the whole time. And then so the twist would be that actually, no, he's actually good. But it never happens.
And I was thinking about Blake 7 before, because Blake 7 guns also have the wires, don't they, that suggest, we'll have laser guns in the future, but they will need to be plugged in occasionally. Whereas, and isn't that a sort of rather, I love the sort of humility of that going, we'll be able to do stuff, but it's not going to be brilliant. It'll still be a bit analog. It'll still be,
Yeah. We're not going to perfect things.
Whereas, an arrogant starts with, we'll just have a laser gun that you can do. Use it. It's got inexhaustible laser beams. You can just think about shooting something and it'll do it, It'll be controlled by your mind. These like, no, you can't shoot more than 3 people before it needs a bit of a lie down.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the battery pack needs recharging in the campfire scene, yeah.
Well, and you can see it because they've got the sort of phone wire that attaches them to the belts, haven't they? It suggests a kind of... Yeah, they need a bit of a charge.
We start to see all the cracks of Terry Nation stuff come through here. His interest in Plague with Survivors, which I started watching.
Somewhat relevant nowadays.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Is Survivors on YouTube like many old UK
It might
shows?
be. I have copies from way back, and I'd never watched Survivors before, and I'm about 8 episodes in as we record this now.
Oh, it's great.
Oh, it is. It's superb. And talk about spotting Doctor Who actors. It's brilliant for it. My usual way of coping with dark times is to watch things about even worse times to make myself reassured that it's not as bad as all that. So
It is, in fact, on YouTube.
there we go. All survivors. We just got to the first episode, which is shot in OB video on location, so that excited me a lot. So I look forward to
you like grey skies, do you?
I do. Don't ask me why, Toby. Don't ask me why. Outdoor videotape is like, oh, the future at last. Yeah.
Yeah, I just got a
that
Blackmagic. Well, the company I work for did Blackmagic Pocket 4K cinema camera, and I'm doing my damnedest to figure out how to make it look like video just to do it.
Because you have to make it look that way.
Of course.
Go ahead, Toby. Sorry.
So I was just going to say, Wester is the name of the character, but that's obviously that's his surname. He's called Jimmy Wester. Jimmy Wester, the friendly Spiridon.
Played by Roy Jimmy Skelton.
Yeah, Roy Jimmy Skelton. Yeah.
See, to we here in Canada, we only know of some of these people through Doctor Who. Like, I never watched Rainbow as a kid. So
right.
Roy Skelton's always the voice of the I never saw Barrow Reed in anything other than Earthshock. So when people say that, oh, that's just Zippy doing the voice of the Daleks, not to me.
We actually did have Rainbow on a public access
We
Alberta
did,
channel,
yeah, we totally
but I never
did.
made the connection.
Oh, nor did I. Now I've got the Rainbow theme in my head.
I've got the Rainbow Christmas video in my head, so you're one up on me.
I do like that, after years of Terry Nation writing his own variation of his own name into character names, he now works his daughter's name.
His daughter, yeah.
She was called Rebecca, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is called, rather.
And his other daughters were called Maretta and Latepa. And his sons were called Jimmy, and Jimmy.
Jimmy. Middle name of Severin Balal.
I like this cliffhanger, and I like the look Bernard Horsfall gives, because it's a hard thing to do, is to look dramatic without looking like an idiot.
Uh-huh.
And I think he does this well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's good. That's good, Bernard. Well done. Well, I can't say Bernard too loudly because my dog's called Bernard and he'll come in.
Is he named after Bernard Horsfall, though?
Well, I've known a number of Bernards.
Yeah, there's
Fair
many
enough.
Bernards, many great Bernards. And
Many great Bernards have come
Doctor
into
Who
my life.
history.
Yeah.
Bernard and his rocket group.
Oh, yeah.
It's that one too, even. I was thinking, of course, Bernard K., but...
Yeah. I wouldn't like to say he was named after a single Bernard, but more for the sum total of Bernards that have had a positive effect on my life.
Yeah, the day of the
Legion of
Bernards.
Bernards. Out there.
The critical mass of Bernards. Well, that was jolly. I'm sorry I made a boo-boo with Hazel Pethig. I don't know why that. I'm
Oh, well, that's
mistake
obviously...
in my head.
You need to you obviously need to pay attention more to stuff that you've been in now, Toby. You have to rip that Band-Aid off and not be terrified about things that you've done.
Oh, no, I'm never going to live this down now. But there'll be some gleeful person somewhere. See, he shouldn't be allowed on anything. He doesn't know us to
well.
go.
It'll be the first
Surprise.
line of your obituary.
Yeah. Toby Hadoke, who made a mistake about
Yeah.
the costume designer of Planet of the Daleks.
Shame him to hell. Toby, this has been great. It's been a long time since we've had you
Well,
on
I
the
was
show.
thinking, how long is it since I've been on the show?
It's been quite a while, but I know that, I mean, you've distanced yourself from Doctor Who by trying to have a normal career, and you've done it rather well, writing a bunch of stuff and things. So I have sort of felt guilty, like, I don't want to drag Toby back into Doctor Who again, because I want you to be able to sort of make your own mark in the world, which you have quite considerably. So, but it's been nice to have you back on. What stuff is out there, and what have you done? And not like a short list, perhaps, because I know you've written a bunch of stuff for BBC Radio and doing other things. But what else do you have on the go that's going to be out or coming out in the days and weeks to come?
I'm currently writing a children's series. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say what it is. I'm on the writer team for a children's series for children's BBC, but it's for 4 to 8 year olds. So I'm having to slightly up my game.
So it's too advanced for Doctor Who fans.
Pitch it slightly higher than my usual work. Yes, and as we speak, I'm recording an audiobook that's really good, and it is genre, but it's a book that hasn't been published because they do the audiobook at the same time, and it's really good. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully in this time of lurgy and quarantine, I might have to do quite a few more voice only things that I can do in the cupboard upstairs. But yeah, various bits and bobs, and I was very pleased that I got Nigel Neal's The Road on Radio 4 with Mark Gatiss, because that's been a long held ambition. So I'm muddling along, and then doing the any sort of Blu-ray and DVD stuff when they ask. So I still, with the Doctor Who, every time I try to get out, they reel me back in. So I'm juggling lots of, as ever, juggling various different things and trying not to have a day job, as I've managed to do for the past 20 years. So
and we've all just caught up with you.
Yeah, basically, you were rehearsing the life that we've all now having to accustom to, being locked inside for the foreseeable future. So.
Yeah, how are you guys doing? Is it all right?
Yeah, we're nerds. We'll handle it just fine.
Yeah, we're watching Planet of the Daleks. What else could go wrong, really?
We have extensive Doctor Who DVD libraries.
Yeah.
Well, I do fear, if nothing else, this, and I know, you are the original, you might say, but I fear in this time of great lurgy, there will not be a shortage of Doctor Who podcasts.
No, there will not, or any other podcast for that matter.
Yeah.
It's the second plague, in fact.
Never has been so far.
I have to say, I did think, shall I do a comedy response to that Imagine video? And then I went online and went, no, I think there are quite enough of those.
Yes,
I think Anson Mount, I love the fact that he said, I'd rather have a colonoscopy.
Perhaps the Doctor in Distress one will come at some point when we're really feeling down, but I won't be the one to initiate such things.
That'll be my funeral dirge.
That's a great idea, yeah.
Write that down.
That's a great idea, yeah.
All right, that's it for this episode, everyone. Next one, hey, we get to watch Planet of the Daleks episodes 3 and 4 with another special guest, so stick around for that.
Episode 3, we never did see as kids.
No, I know, this will be a relatively new experience for me because it's more or less does not exist. So watch in amazement as we see relatively new Doctor Who again. So until next time, I am Stephen in Edmonton.
Warren in Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
So long for now.
You've been listening to Radio Free Skaro. Find us online at radiofreeskaro.com, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr at Radio Free Skaro, subscribe to us on iTunes, and donate to the show at patreon.com/Radio Free Skaro. Thank you.